What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ron, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Love you, appreciate you, could never do it without you. We thank you so much for being part of your afternoon, for making us part of your afternoon. Here's how you guys can take a part of it, take part in the show. Here's how you guys can take a piece of us. What are we talking about
Yeah. Today, Junior.
Yeah, Billy Madison. I finally got one, Diesel. Finally got one. Here's how you guys can take part. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. It is the carpro.com text line. Invite you to get to us there as well. We are also on YouTube. Hello to all of our beautiful babies on YouTube today. The Fan Upstate on YouTube. Just open your YouTube app, go to the Fan Upstate. You will see us right there, large and in charge. Here is what's coming up on the show today. Our ACC and SEC team preview series continues. It is LSU on the clock, and we've got the nationally known Matt Moscano from ESPN Baton Rouge joining us on the show today. We're going to tell you on the show today how the end of college football realignment looks. How does it appear? We've got our picks for the division winners in the NFL today. We have created an important NFL quarterback stat that you have not previously considered that we will share with you on the show today as well. When we look at Clemson's schedule from most likely to least likely, where is the loss or losses? Where are they going to come from? We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got Truth Serum, and we have you right here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Still having a hard time understanding from yesterday why there aren't more Gamecock fans that understand the statistical analysis. You know, we heard from the Spurs Up show, so on and so forth. If you're just joining us today, South Carolina got a 5-star commitment yesterday. That's fantastic. Dylan Stewart. So because I am naturally a curious person, right, I said, okay, well, is what Shane Beamer's doing above what has happened in the past? Is it above and beyond what they've previously done, right? Is it above and beyond what Will Muschamp has done? And my statistical analysis showed it isn't. It isn't. And so, you know, you get Gamecock fans saying, well, what about this and what about that? And you shouldn't go by SEC rank. You should go about this. And what it is they just want to they just want you to work more and more and more and harder and harder and harder so they can find an area where the guy they like, Beamer, ranks ahead of the guy they don't, Muschamp. They don't like one, they love the other, and the early results are almost exactly the same. Almost exactly the same. Will Muschamp's classes at South Carolina, their average SEC ranking was 7.75 out of 14 teams. Shane Beamer's is 8th out of 14 teams. Record after 2 years, Shane Beamer 15-11, Muschamp 15-11. Now, are we myopic enough not to acknowledge and realize that there's more to the total picture than those two things? Of course we realize, though. Of course we realize that. But we could agree, right, that one loss record and recruiting ranking are the two most important things. Perhaps beating Clemson third. Beamer's done that. Muschamp never did, but Muschamp beat Georgia, and Beamer hasn't yet done that. And so people act like, well, how dare you come out with this statistical analysis that shows that Beamer has not elevated past Muschamp? Well, I was interested in seeing what the results would be. I would have shared the results either way. They just happened to go viral because Beamer was below Muschamp. If Beamer had been above Muschamp, it wouldn't have gone viral. I would have still tweeted it out, and none of you would have known about it. So you see how the news cycle works? Do you guys see and understand now how and why local news leads with bad news? Because you guys talk about bad news. We talk about bad news, right? Bad news gets you to engage. Good news does not. Nobody sees the good news, but everybody sees and engages with the bad news. I wasn't trying to doctor that. I wasn't trying to create that. I merely was interested in seeing, that's a 5-star. Is Beamer ahead of what Muschamp was doing? The answer is, my friends, he is not. That said, okay, to show you the breadth of thought that we're able to have here on this show, if I were to give Spurrier, Muschamp, and Beamer a scale of 1 to 10 grade, how did they each do scale of 1 to 10? You simply have to rate Spurrier a 10. Why? Even with how he left the program, you got to rate him a 10. Again, why? You got to rate him a 10 because he sets the bar for what can be achieved at South Carolina. He is the trendsetter, right? All other coaches will be measured against what Steve Spurrier did there. So for the Gators, what Steve Spurrier accomplished at South Carolina would not have been a 10. But for South Carolina, that represents the creme de la creme. That represents the best. By the way, do you like me in garnet? Do I look, I got garnet and I got black here today. For those on the YouTube stream, I've got my full South Carolina colors on today. No, there's no Gamecocks on my shirts, but I am wearing garnet today. Look pretty dapper, if I do say so myself. I would give Spurrier 10. I would give Muschamp scale of 1 to 10 a 4. You can't give him a 1 or a 2 because he did recruit well. He did have a season and a half of good performance, and he did have the win against Georgia. So Spurrier's a 10, Muschamp's a 4. I would probably say that my hunch is Beamer's about a 7. Okay? Beamer is, so that's why the question we asked you is so good, right? Is Beamer closer to Muschamp or Spurrier? Because my ranking is right in between those two. My hunch is Beamer might be about a 7, but we don't have nearly enough information yet to gauge that at this time. Diesel, what say you? Scale of 1 to 10. Spurrier, I say, has got to be a 10. Muschamp, where is he? Beamer, where is he?
Relative to the program, not relative to college football as a whole, relative to the program. Yeah, I'd say Shane. I would say that Steve Spurrier up there about a 9 or a 10. Yeah, he could have been better, but he did basically everything he could do at South Carolina. If I would give him a 10 if he had left the program on better terms, if he had been, because I look at it from the perspective of what actually happened. Legendary coach, got you to some wins and loss heights that you've never achieved before. But on his way out the door, he knew he wasn't going to coach there forever. On his way out the door, he quit. He quit on the team. He quit recruiting, and he left the cupboard really, really bare. You would expect a coach like that to at least try to keep the cupboard as stocked as he possibly can so that whoever comes after him is going to have something to work with. Shane Beamer probably sitting right now at about a 6 or 7. Will Muschamp at a 4. I agree with your rankings.
Yeah, so Diesel says 6 or 7 for Beamer, 4 for Muschamp, 9 or 10 for Spurrier. Yeah, I mean, you could mark Spurrier down for how he left the program, but he's still the top dog at South Carolina, right? If he sets the bar at your school, right, he was the 10. He was the one supermodel that you got to date, right? Steve Spurrier was that guy for you. My hunch is Beamer is better than Muschamp. And we're able to say that because we're able to see beyond the numbers here in the early going. After all, stats are like bikinis. They show some things, but not all. But we also can say, well, at some point, those numbers are going to matter. At some point, to actually be rated higher than Muschamp, he's got to be better than Muschamp. The other thing we want to ask you guys today is the following. What is your hottest take for the college football season 2023? My buddy Jake Crane from Crane & Company joins us every week during college football season on the show. Asked that question of his audience today. He said, give me your hottest college football 2023 take. And I said, Florida State will not appear in the ACC championship game. That is my honest assessment. That is my honest feeling. So I'm going to ask you guys this, but here's the criteria. Okay, here's the criteria. Your hottest take for the college football 2023 season must be something, my friends, that you actually believe. It must be something that you believe. Okay, so I'm not looking for clickbait. I'm not looking for, sensationalism. I'm looking for something that you actually believe. All right. What is your hottest take, your most controversial take that actually bears some semblance of truth? All right. That you believe is true heading into this season for 2023. What is that for you? 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us on the show. When you guys submit your hottest college football take, I'm going to grade them, okay? An A means I think your hot take has a snowball's chance in Hades of happening. An F means you are a true hot take artist and you have no chance to see your take come to fruition. Now, you guys know, if you listen to this show, I believe Florida State is the most overrated team in the country. And I want to tell you what is going to happen here. Florida State could very well be like 7-2, 8-2, 9-2, and you're going to hear a bunch of the it's a breed of bird. I call them I told you so's. You're going to hear all the I told you so people say, Mark, how about Florida State? You said they were the most overrated. They're 9-2. Yeah, they play in the All Cupcakes Conference, and they're heading into the Florida game. They lost to LSU. They lost to Clemson. They beat the Cupcakes of the ACC. They are the most overrated team in America, ladies and gentlemen. They're not close to being at the blue chip ratio. 5-3 last year in the ACC. They're not where they need to be overall in terms of line talent, offensive line or defensive line. They have some good skill position players, Travis, Wilson, etc. But I think you're going to see a talent gap when they come to Clemson. I really do think you're going to see that. Now, on the show today at 4:40, we are going to rank for you from most likely to be a loss to least likely to be a loss, Clemson's schedule. Okay, 1 through 12. Most likely losses to least likely losses. 1 through 12, we'll do that for you today. Okay, we most certainly will. You could guess right now whether or not Florida State is Clemson's hardest game on my schedule, most likely to result in a loss. 71307 is the text line for where you can get to us. We'll get to Diesel's hottest college football takes in a minute, but let's get to yours right now. Remember, I am giving you guys a grade, okay? A grade. A means you have a good hot take that actually is pretty likely to happen. F means you're a hot take artist. There's no way this is true. There's no way this is accurate. My hottest take, according to Spur Daddy, is that Alabama wins the national title. Never doubt Saban. Never. A through F letter grade. Likelihood. I'm going to say, Spur Daddy, you get a solid B. Because that very well could happen. And everyone is doubting Alabama. And there is now a gap that is mentioned between Georgia and Alabama, right? There is now even a gap, like I see Georgia and I see Ohio State mentioned most for your 2023 national champion. Alabama, shall we say, is a wee bit forgotten as a national championship contender this year. Alabama's quarterback situation, a little bit in flux. Is it going to be Simpson? Is it going to be Milroe? Who's it going to be? I think that's a pretty good hottest take for 2023, Spur Daddy. in the college football year. Let's hear your college football hottest takes of 2023. 844 fan phone. That's 844-326-3663. Not in the ACC, Mark, but my hottest take is Spencer Rattler could rise as a top 3 quarterback in the draft. Jumps Quinn Ewers, Nix, and Penix. So he's going to be behind May and Williams. And that's it. All right? That's it. That's all he's going to be behind. Is it possible, Texter? Yes. Is it likely? No. Depends on the kind of season South Carolina has, so I'll give you a C. You are not a complete and total hot take artist, but I've seen hot takes that I would consider more likely. Still, I appreciate the creativity of your take. Diesel, what do you got? Hottest takes 2023 college football season. Ladies and gentlemen, send them to us. What do you got? What do you got, Diesel?
This one hurts me to say out loud. I really despise the words that are coming out of my mouth, and I hate myself for saying them. But North Carolina goes on a run, beats Clemson on the road November 18th, and makes the college football playoff.
Diesel, this clearly isn't Producer Appreciation Day because I'm going to give you an F for that. You believe that? Do you believe that to be true?
It's called a hot take.
Yeah, no, I know, but
not all hot takes are believable.
Yeah, but I know, but it's like
what you're saying is, oh, let's pick Alabama to win the title. Great job, buddy. You can pick that literally any year. That is not a hot take.
Okay, but
you're wanting cool takes. You're wanting cool takes that are predictions most likely to happen. I think you're misunderstanding what a hot take is.
We gave the definition, Diesel. We said it's got to be something you believe. As long as you believe that, I can disbelieve that. But if you believe North Carolina is going to make the college football playoff, roll with that.
North Carolina has what will likely be a top 5 pick overall. Could be the number 1 quarterback pick overall. They have a lot of pieces back from a team last year. They got to get a defense figured out. They sure as hell don't have that. I'm not saying that North Carolina is going to be a dominant football team, but I could see them eking out high-scoring games and having a real shot at the college football playoff.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you believe that, roll with it. All right? If you believe that, roll with it. But Diesel's hot take has me saying, waiter, I'll have one of what he's having, because I don't even know if Diesel believes that. I don't even know if he does.
I don't want to believe it, but I think it's plausible.
Okay, so Diesel gets an F for funky. All right. We've got a texter who has got a Spur Daddy gets a B. The texter that says Rattler rises to top 3 quarterbacks in the draft gets a C. And we've got a whole host of additional hot takes for the 2023 college football season that are coming in right now. We will get to yours. We will give you grades, and we will do so next right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Each and every day, we are giving you one segment on a team in the ACC or SEC. And today, we go to the Bayou, where we talk LSU Tigers football with one of the most successful hosts in the country. What they've done with their station and their show there, folks, is incredibly impressive. ESPN Baton Rouge. After Further Review is the show. The host is Matt Moscano. Follow him on Twitter at the same name. And he joins us right now on the Fan Upstate. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. Matt, always great to catch up with you, my friend. Thanks so much for making the time. Why were the culture curiosities regarding Brian Kelly and LSU unfounded?
Because there's tons of history at LSU that suggests cultural fit has nothing to do with success here. I get it. Louisiana, and in particular, the southern part of our state, is as culturally. You don't even qualify when you talk about the word unique. If it's unique, there's literally just one. There's no place even in the South that's like Louisiana. So I get it, but you don't have to be able to spell andouille or make a roux to be able to coach here. Winningest coach ever is Skip Bertman, who's a legendary baseball coach, won 5 national titles. He's a Jewish guy from Miami. The winningest basketball coach ever here was Dale Brown from Minot, North Dakota. Nick Saban, from West Virginia, spent his whole coaching career in the Midwest. All you really have to do is embrace the people here and use the incredible amount of resources you have when you're a coach at LSU, from the talent in this state to the financial resources invested in facilities and staff. It's ready-made if you embrace it, and it doesn't matter where you're from.
Matt, what is the most legendary po' boy shack in Baton Rouge, and what makes it better than the legendary po' boy shacks in New Orleans?
That's going to start a major fight. Try to go there.
I'm well aware.
If you go to a true, authentic po' boy shop, and we would call them a po' boy shop, not a shack.
Excuse me.
You would find Leidenheimer French bread is the thing that's truly authentic. It's like flaky on top, and if you get that, you're getting something legit. And there's not many places in Baton Rouge that use Leidenheimer French bread, but you'll find that many places in New Orleans. So you get a shrimp or a 10-napkin roast beef. That's generally the way to go.
Matt Moscano joining us, our LSU team preview here today on Offsides. Matt, I've been telling everyone who will listen, the easiest bet for me all offseason is LSU against Florida State, revenge game. I've seen it at a point and a half, 2.5 points. I think LSU wins that game by more than 14 points. And I think as this has worn on, we've gotten a ton of love for Florida State that I think is a little bit baseless. They were a 5-3 ACC team last year. We remember, our memories serve us to remember the first and last things that we saw. So Florida State's getting a ton of credit for that LSU win, but that was game 1. Brian Kelly, I understand it's in Florida. I just think talent, revenge factor, LSU wins that game going away. Are you close to as confident as I am?
I could definitely see that play out. I think I probably have a little more respect for Jordan Travis. He, I thought, was pretty spectacular at times last year, and certainly the way they finished. The other thing about a year ago, which is interesting, is, remember, Florida State played a week 0 game. They played Duquesne. So they had a bit of a tune-up, whereas that was LSU's first crack with a new staff and 40-some-odd transfers. Not excuse-making, but that's the reality that they were facing. That they had a guy playing center in that game that hadn't snapped the ball since middle school. They were very much learning on the fly in that Florida State game, and still darn near won it. But I think Florida State is really good. When I always look at, when I'm trying to make a preseason prediction, I say, okay, who has the fewest amount of questions against the most manageable schedule? So that's why I look at Florida State and I go, okay, I like that. They returned some 95% of their production from a year ago, which is number 1 in the country. And so I get why people are high on Florida State. I think 1-85, LSU probably has a talent edge, and I probably like Jaden Daniels a little more than I like Jordan Travis. But I hope it's a really good game. But if LSU runs away with it, I wouldn't be complaining.
Matt Moscano joining us here on the air. Matt, what was the biggest issue that plagued the 2022 LSU team, and how has Brian Kelly and co addressed it this offseason?
Well, there were two. It started with the offensive line. They used 6 different line combinations in the first 8 weeks. Ultimately, they settled on 2 true freshman offensive tackles who ended up being total studs, and now they returned 6 of their top 7 offensive linemen. Their highest-rated signee from this most recent class is a 5-star offensive lineman, and they brought in a transfer from Maryland, Mason Lunsford, who's made 40-some-odd starts in his career. So they are not only deep, but they are experienced and talented and veteran, and they're going to be really good there. The real bugaboo, though, was special teams. And nobody ever asked about special teams because nobody really cares. It's something that if you're talking about it, it's probably for the wrong reasons. Well, we've talked about the Florida State game. LSU muffed 2 punts, and they had a PAT blocked at the end of the game, which cost them a chance to send it to overtime. Go look at the blowout loss at home to Tennessee. Literally the opening kickoff, they muffed the opening kickoff and gave that great Tennessee offense the ball inside the red zone. Special teams were atrocious for LSU. If you look at special teams efficiency ratings from last year, LSU was 3rd to last in the country. They were awful in every phase. And they have their specialists back, and I think some of their specialists are good, but their units just didn't function at all. They removed Brian Polian, who was the special teams coordinator. John Jancic, who was an off-field staffer last year, is moving on-field, who coached special teams and outside linebackers. But that's going to be one of those hold your breath, believe it when you see it type things when they actually tee it up and kick it off against Florida State.
Matt Moscano joining us. Matt, when we go to a 12-team playoff and you consider and study as we have, and I'm sure you have as well, that you're going to have to be about 10-2 to make the college football playoff. You can be 9-3 if you're a conference champion, but I don't see a 9-3 team winning the SEC ever. Are you concerned, as I am, that that's going to spell the end of the season openers like LSU against Florida State? Because why would you schedule that game when you got to go 10-2? And for programs like LSU, for programs like my alma mater, Florida, it's going to be a very clear black and white success or failure. Either you made the 12-team college football playoff or you didn't.
So I don't think it's going to spell the end for a couple of reasons. Number one, like look at a team like LSU, for example. They've got non-conference Power 5 games scheduled through 2032. So there's home and homes with Clemson, with Utah, Arizona State. I mean, those are scheduled. I guess you could always, agree to cancel it or pay buyout money for it, but I don't see that happening. I think the bigger question would be, do conference schedules expand? Does the SEC go from 8 to 9 or eventually if they keep expanding to 10? And then that might eliminate those Power 5 non-conference games. I don't know that we're there yet. But, guys, ultimately, I don't know how you feel about it. I don't think we're stopping at 12. I think we get to 16 minimum in the playoff in my lifetime. And I think in the recent future, we will get there. There's an appetite for it. Every other sport has it, does it successfully. And I think once we get into a 12-team playoff and you have on-campus playoff games, people are going to salivate over this, and we're just going to keep expanding it further. So, no, I don't think it's going to mean the end. I think we're going the other way. I think you're going to ultimately see an expanded playoff, and you're going to see every team in the country playing 12 games or 11 games against Power 5 opponents. Because if we're being very honest, nobody wants to see the body bag games. Like, there's literally no college football fan that is looking forward to watching LSU against Grambling. It just doesn't exist. Those games only exist for 2 reasons: for the home team to get a gate, and for the road team, that group of 5 team, to fund their athletic department, to get a paycheck and get their head kicked in. Nobody wants to see it. And I think we're moving in college football toward a point where those games are more likely to go away.
Matt, a guy that you might have heard of, Josh Pate, good friend of the show here, doesn't believe that long-term the SEC and Big Ten will agree to a model where they have the same number of auto bids as conferences that they deem lesser than theirs, the ACC, the Big 12, the Pac-10, or however many schools. How many schools are left in the Pac-12 today? Not really sure. Are auto bids the way to go? Is expanding the number of auto bids per conference the way to go, or should they get rid of them completely?
I hate auto bids. I think it's a terrible idea. There should be a true meritocracy. If you're good enough to be in the playoff, you should be in. I don't care what league you're in. Auto bids are stupid, and I hope when we continue to expand, we move beyond that. And you could say, well, what's the point of having conferences without some benefit of winning your conference? Guys, I think we're heading to a day and age where we will not have conferences. I mean, we are going to get to a point in college football. I'm sure you saw the report today that the Big Ten is going to meet and consider moving to 18 or potentially 20 teams. We're going to get to a point where the collective of college football exists and it's invite only. It's the top 50 programs, name it, whatever it is. And those 50 programs, I'm just throwing out a number, act like the NFL does, where those programs, college football does its TV deals in the way that the NFL does its TV deals and rev shares. And then once you've got your college football model, you can segment it regionally however you want, divisions, you've worked that out in time. But the idea of granting group of 5 teams an auto bid or teams from lesser leagues an auto bid just to let them play it's actually fundamentally un-American. We live in a nation that is built upon the idea of merit wins. And I cannot stomach the idea of just handing someone a gift into a playoff just because they exist.
Interesting take. Matt Moscano joining us here on the show. So, Matt, look, most expect LSU to be a very, very good team this year. But LSU fans, right, their expectations are at the very, very top of the list. If LSU achieves what most people think they will, which is to say they don't make the SEC championship game, but they're a top 10 team, is that going to be viewed favorably in Baton Rouge, or is it, SEC title game or bust?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it might be how it looks. I think the really interesting part of this conversation is that normally when you're in this part of the season and optimism abounds for every program in the country, normally it's internal, right? I think, Mark, you said that you're a Florida alum. There's not many people outside of Florida that are really high on
Sure.
the Gators. My guess is if I go to Gainesville today, there's a lot of people there saying, well, they're sleeping on Graham Mertz and watch Billy Napier in year 2, and they're pumping why it's going to be a good year for the Gators. And that's not just a Florida thing. That's an everywhere thing. The weird thing about LSU, or I guess the different thing certainly than a year ago, is a lot of the respect is coming nationally. I mean, LSU is going to be, I think, a consensus preseason top 5 team. They've got the fourth best odds to win the national championship of any team in college football. Jaden Daniels has the second best Heisman odds. So it's not necessarily just, I think, people in the LSU community or fans propping up their team. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of bouquets being thrown this team nationally. And so I think when that happens, the expectation level naturally rises. And so if you don't meet those expectations, sure, there will be a disappointment. I also think there's a sort of this realistic little tinge there that goes, yeah, but you do still have to play at Alabama, and Florida State's a tough non-conference game, and it's still hard to go undefeated in the SEC. And maybe you don't win the West, but what if you go 11-1 and your only loss is at Alabama? Could you still make the playoff? I think that's a possibility anyway. So I don't mean to cop out. I think it really matters how the record looks, how the season plays out. But yeah, I think it's also fair to say that expectations are as high as they've been here since 2019. And if this ends up, a 9-3 type season with another Citrus Bowl, then I think people will be very disappointed.
Matt, I think it's an inevitability in the SEC as the conference keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger with every ad. They're not really adding a whole lot of teams that make easy wins for the SEC's existing teams. How does LSU sell a potential season with 3, 4, 5 losses, but with better teams when they're used to losing only 1 or 2 or 3 games a season?
Yeah, you don't. That's you don't. I mean, it's not the expectation. And I understand that's not the reality everywhere, and I certainly understand LSU is odd because it's had its peaks and valleys. But if you go back to LSU's national championship in 2003, the only school in college football, the only program that's won more national titles in that span than LSU is Alabama. So, I mean, LSU's won 3 of them and played for a 4th. So, it's just what the expectation is here. And so if you ever end up in a season with 3 or 4 or 5 losses, people are going to melt. I mean, that's why, guys, that's why they paid a man $17 million to go away a year and a half after the greatest college football season ever. I mean, that speaks volumes about the expectations in this place. Running Ed Ogeron out 18 months after the 2019 national championship season, and not just firing him, but paying a $17 million buyout. So, no, they'll never get comfortable here with 4 and 5 loss seasons, nor should they.
Matt Moscano, host of After Further Review, 3 to 6 p.m. Central Time, ESPN Baton Rouge. Follow him on Twitter at the same name, Matt, Moscona. Great catching up with you, Matt. We always enjoy our segment with you. Thank you so much, and we look forward to catching up with you this season.
Okay, guys, be well.
All right, take care. Matt Moscano, as plugged in to the Bayou Bengals as anyone could possibly be. Matt Moscano for LSU. Thought he had a lot of interesting things to say, Diesel, especially his takes on what's going to come from college football. I mean, that was some really outside-the-box stuff. And if you are somebody who likes to cling to the feel-good of yesterday in college football, hearing that hurts you. No conferences. You know the first thing I think of there, Diesel? I love waving the SEC conference flag, and I love that it annoys people when I do that. I would hate the idea of there being no conferences anymore. So where you have hey, man, in our region, we play better football than you do.
Well, you know how people complain, Mark, that Coca-Cola is too sweet? It's got too much sugar in it. It didn't start that way. And incrementally over the years, they went from, and I'm just making these numbers up off the top of my head, they went from 5 grams of sugar in a bottle to 7 grams. And then the testing said, well, people like it with 9 grams. Let's go to 9. And all of a sudden we're at 40 grams. 40 grams is way too much, way more than anybody who first originally tasted it, enjoyed the flavor, and who designed the drink ever would have put in a bottle of Coca-Cola. It's the incremental steps that keep you from seeing the ultimate end game that you really are not going to like. And I'm really scared that that's where we're going. And then there's not going to be any way to undo it because there's going to be so much money and so many ironclad contracts put together that will prevent anything from being changed back to the way that it was.
You know, I don't mean to go all existential on you, Diesel, but I'm going to. You know, to bring this back to the alien conversation we had the other day. Sometimes I wonder, Diesel, if there isn't just a higher being somewhere that, like, we are the experiment, and they keep running experiments to see how long it takes this being to ruin their planet. See what I'm saying? How long does it take human beings? Okay, we're going to put humans on the planet a little bit BC, right? A little bit before Christ. We're going to put humans on the planet. And roughly in our experiments, it takes roughly 10,000 years for human beings to destroy the planet. We're seeing that in college football. We're seeing that in college football right now. And it's all based on greed. An expanded playoff, give me a bucket to puke in.
Which is why I am extremely happy with the way my conference has developed over the past 10 to 15 years. It is, instead of expanding to ridiculous lengths from east to west, north to south, it has gone more insular and more compact. And I love it. I love it. The farthest two teams in my conference's division are Marshall and Coastal Carolina. So from Huntington, West Virginia to Conway, South Carolina. Don't ever let anybody tell you that Coastal Carolina is in Myrtle Beach, because it's not. That is end-to-end division right there. And I love it. You got You got historic rivals that played each other back in their FCS days, bitter rivals for the last 40, 50, 60 years. And it's moving towards that, not away from that. That's why I love the Sun Belt.
By the way, I gave you a shot to come back at him when he said that giving a group of 5 a playoff berth is un-American. I gave you a shot to come back at him. You didn't take it.
Why didn't you take it?
Well, because that's your fight. That's your fight. The group of 5 should have a seat.
I'm sorry. I'm doing like 15 things over here, and I wasn't paying attention to exactly what he said.
Yeah. It was that, to give anybody an auto berth, the SEC champion auto berth, a group of 5 an auto berth, he said it's un-American. He said, paraphrasing, that, to give a group of 5 a playoff berth is not based on merit. And he says it should be a meritocracy. So I thought all that stuff was really, really interesting stuff. Matt Moscano, ESPN Baton Rouge. Folks, what is your hottest take for the 2023 college football season? We'll grade yours that continue to come in via the carpro.com text line, 71307. Start your text with the word fan, and away you go right after this.
Oh, so you didn't fall asleep in the last segment.
I like having Matt Moscano on, man. He's fun, really knowledgeable.
Now your camera froze in a
Yeah.
pose that like your eyes were shut. You leaned back for a second, blinked, and then man, it looked like you fell asleep.
Man, great to see everyone in the YouTube chat today. Not the YouTube chat, the YouTube feed, right? Fantastic to see you guys on there. If you ever want to see a visual of the show, we're up on YouTube, man. Open the YouTube app in your phone. Go to the Fan Upstate. You'll see us right there in a 4-hour show. Diesel and I do the first couple of hours each and every day, including the top 5 and 5 right there on the YouTube app. So if you ever wanted to see what the inner workings of a show look like, we're right there for you, my friend. We are right there for you. So what we started the show with today was saying we're going to grade your hot takes, okay, on college football. What is your hottest take for the 2023 college football season? Let's see here. Texter says Miami makes an appearance in the ACC championship game, but falls short to Clemson, gets a New Year's Six bowl. C, Texter, C. C in terms of likelihood. The more likely I think it is, the more feasible your hot take is, the higher the grade, okay? I think unlikely. I think Cristobal is still a year or two away. Mongo says, my hottest take is South Carolina loses the tiebreaker to Georgia for the East. They're so cute at this age, Mongo. F, get out of here with this. You're tied with Georgia for the East? Come on. Hot take, Clemson misses the ACC championship game. Well, there's no more divisions. They'd have a much greater chance of missing it if they had divisions. Then they lose to Florida State. They got to have Florida State lose twice in the conference. Much lower percentage chance now. I'll say that one is a D. Texter says, Mark, Bo Nix wins the Heisman. So you think Oregon's going to be that good because you've got to be, right, to win the Heisman. Texter says, Mongo says, Drake May is a fraud, gentlemen. Gamecocks win by 14. Odds that Gamecocks win by 14. I'll say that's a C. Not overly likely, but not impossible. We've had a couple people wonder about their text messages coming through. West and B, we are getting them. Texter says, Mark, LeBron James said Bronny James might not play basketball again since his cardiac arrest. He shouldn't. DeMar Hamlin shouldn't play football anymore either.
Do you remember when I put that on my truth serum that LeBron and Bronny would never play on the same team in the NBA?
Yeah, I do. How
about
about
last week or 2 weeks ago?
How about that? Let's see here. Mongo says he'll become an FCS and Wofford fan before he'll support a college football with no conferences. And Texter says, yeah, Bo Nix wins the Heisman. We will soon see. Great hot takes on college football, my friends. So coming up next on the show, I have devised, because you guys know I'm a nerd like this, right? I did the statistical analysis yesterday comparing Beamer's recruiting with Muschamp's recruiting. I'm going to unveil a brand new stat for you that I think, what is it, Diesel? Separates the cream from the wheat? Separates the cream from the wheat.
The wheat from the chaff.
The wheat from the chaff, not the cream from the wheat.
No.
One day I'll get this right.
No, you don't use wheat to make cream. Use milk to make cream.
One day I'll get this right, but that is not today, apparently. We will get to my new stat for the NFL next. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your day. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your afternoon. We thank you so kindly for doing just that. You know, guys, I will tell you this. When you look at how quarterbacks are spliced, and now you guys see the same thing, right? We have quarterbacks in tiers, right? We have quarterbacks in tiers. We have quarterbacks in the top 100. The Athletic last week came out with a quarterback tier system that put a lot of quarterbacks into a lot of different tiers. And, you know, different people are upset about this or upset about that, upset about any number of things with this tiered system, right? It's just the way that it is. But when you look at how these quarterbacks are divvied up, I think there is, as you heard me say, I value wins when it matters most. And you'll hear the super intellectual NFL types say, well, no, Mark, quarterback wins is not a stat. You can't measure what a quarterback does. You can't hold wins on a quarterback when the entire team is responsible for wins. That all sounds well and good, right? In theory. It all sounds well and good in theory. But the reality is, time and time again, we see the best quarterbacks elevate their teams to the point where they can win big-time playoff games. I'll give you guys an example here, all right? Justin Herbert has played 2 seasons in the NFL, signed a 5-year, $262 million extension this offseason. 2 seasons, right? He is getting $53 million a year over 5 years. Justin Herbert has not won a playoff game. Justin Herbert has had 2 chances to win a playoff game, has not won a playoff game in either of those 2 chances. Am I crazy for saying there's no way I give him that extension before I see a little bit more? So what I'm going to do, folks, here is I'm going to give you a stat that I have created, right? It's all based on data that actually exists, okay? And what it's going to allow us to do is really determine who is producing when it matters most and who is not. All right? Who is producing when it matters most and who is not? Folks, my stat is simply quarterback playoff wins per year. That's it. How many playoff wins do the quarterbacks in the NFL earn each season? And before you tell me what the analytical nerds say, that, well, this is far too individualistic, football is a team game, I will point you to the quarterbacks that have elevated their teams to great things. The Chiefs were not doing what they're doing before Patrick Mahomes got there. This will also help to clearly differentiate the top tier from the middle to the bottom tier, which is what you don't see when you see a lot of these rankings. I'll give you an example. The Athletic and the GMs and the coaches in the National Football League, they came up with their tier 1 and tier 2, and it's all based on votes. And they said Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, and Justin Herbert are your tier 1 quarterbacks. Well, how the hell could Justin Herbert be in there? He hasn't won a single playoff game. Oh, you think he's going to win a playoff game. But you shouldn't be able to be placed in tier 1 until you've had a lot of postseason success, until you've gone on runs in the postseason. Let's look at these other tier 1 guys. Patrick Mahomes, a lot of postseason success. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, some postseason success. Aaron Rodgers, some postseason success. Justin Herbert, no postseason success. So I have crunched the numbers, my friends, and I've done the math for you here. And what this is going to allow you to do is to differentiate between the top tier and the second tier and the third tier, unlike any stat that has ever existed previously. All right? In this stat, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 quarterbacks that average 0.7 playoff wins a year or more. Okay, so round up to 1, right? They average 0.7 playoff wins a year or more. Who are those quarterbacks? Here you go. Jalen Hurts at 2 playoff wins in 3 seasons. Okay, small sample size, but has played well in that small sample size. Brock Purdy, 2.0. He's got 2 playoff wins in 1 season. Josh Allen has 4 playoff wins in 5 seasons. That gives him a number of 0.8. Jimmy Garoppolo has 4 playoff wins in 3 seasons. That's a 1.3. Joe Burrow has 5 playoff wins in 3 seasons. That is a 1.7. That is freaking outstanding. Russell Wilson has 9 playoff wins in 11 seasons. That is 0.82 playoff wins a year. Aaron Rodgers has 11 wins in 13 seasons, 11 playoff wins in 13 seasons. That's 0.85. And then the standard bearer, Patrick Mahomes, who has 11 playoff wins in exactly 5 seasons. Patrick Mahomes, folks, is averaging 2.2 playoff wins a year. There are 8 guys that average 0.7 playoff wins a year or more. And there is a clear gap between them and everybody else. Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, Josh Allen, Jimmy Garoppolo, Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes. Those guys are there. Those guys are getting it done. Those guys are achieving when it matters the most. All of them are achieving when it matters the most. Who is not? Who is falling short? Here you go. And a lot of these guys you see on a lot of top 5 and top 10 lists. Why did I not mention Trevor Lawrence yet? Again, very small sample size. 1 playoff win in 2 years for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is averaging, you can do the math, 0.5 playoff wins a year, right? Here are some of the quarterbacks who should not be receiving the accolades. They are. Lamar Jackson has 1 playoff win in 5 years. That's 0.2 playoff wins a year. Remember, you want to be at 0.7 or above. 0.7 or above, Lamar Jackson is at 0.2. Deshaun Watson has 1 playoff win in 4 seasons, 0.25. Kirk Cousins has 1 playoff win in 8 seasons. That is awful. 0.13 playoff wins a year. Daniel Jones has 1 playoff win in 4 seasons, 0.25. All right. Baker Mayfield, 1 playoff win in 5 seasons, 0.2. Here we go. Dak Prescott, 2 playoff wins in 6 seasons, 0.33. Not good enough. Ryan Tannehill, 2 playoff wins in 10 seasons, 0.2 playoff wins a year. And then finally, Jared Goff, 2 playoff wins in 6 seasons, 0.333 wins a year. The following starters have not yet won a playoff game. Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields, Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, and Geno Smith. And I damn sure would not be breaking the bank for anybody, okay, that is not giving me postseason success. I think, it's one thing to say, man, Justin Herbert throws a pretty ball. But does he lead you to wins in the postseason? Yes or no? Who inherited a worse situation, Joe Burrow in Cincinnati or Justin Herbert in Los Angeles? Who had a worse team around them? You know the answer to that. What has Joe Burrow done? He's given you 1.7 playoff wins a year. That is massive. That is insane. So, folks, if you take one thing away from this, allow it to be this. Do not buy the lists. Do not buy the rankings. Do not buy the massive contracts given out to guys like Kirk Cousins and Justin Herbert if they do not come with playoff wins. Do not buy them. I don't buy them. You shouldn't be buying them, right? Because we've got 8 quarterbacks. Look, to me, Jimmy Garoppolo has won. He knows how to win. He doesn't stay healthy, but when he plays, he wins, right? Brock Purdy, really good roster around him, off to a fantastic start, though, in San Francisco. And he scored very, very well on that S2 cognitive test. Josh Allen, 4 playoff wins in 5 years. Josh, that's good, but it puts you below the level of quarterbacks who are averaging more than a playoff win every single year that they start. You've seen that with the Buffalo Bills, right? They win one playoff game, they win the wild card round, they lose the next game. Everyone is looking forward to Josh Allen taking the next step. Josh Allen is not in the Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes class, right? He is in the Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers class. That is a step down. But he is certainly ahead of, Josh Allen is, the Lamar Jackson and the Kirk Cousins class. Certainly far above those guys. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us on the show. Is it fair or unfair to measure our quarterbacks by postseason success? Is it fair or unfair for them to have to earn this contract that Justin Herbert just signed, 5 years, $263 million? Earn that with postseason success before we just hand it to you. I'm not so sure that was earned. Justin Herbert has as many playoff wins as I do right now. And that just doesn't cut it for me. Just doesn't cut it from these seats, from where I'm sitting. Playoff wins per year. Think about that. Because, my friends, it has so much more to do with who you've got under center than anybody realizes. When I saw this list of quarterback playoff wins, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was so obvious that there's certain quarterbacks who galvanize their team and elevate the performance of their entire team, and other quarterbacks don't. Yet they all appear on the top 10 lists, and they shouldn't. 71307 on the carpro.com text line is where you can get to us when we come back here on the show. How does the college football conference realignment picture end? How does it end? What would we do if we were each of these conferences? What would be our strategies moving forward? That, my friends, is next, and this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Awesome to see all you guys with us. The carpro.com text line is jumping. The YouTube pages as well. Spur Daddy, Madcraft, Brandon Keeler. Awesome to see all you guys in today, as it is every single day. Let's see here. Shai Copeland comes in with his hot take. He says, Rattler and May go 1-2 in Heisman voting. Cade spends the year handing the ball off. So says Shai Copeland. Shai, that doesn't fit your namesake, man. That wasn't a very shy hot take, but that is the very essence of what a hot take is, I suppose. Texter says, I say Carolina shocks Clemson again, scoring a touchdown in the final seconds to win 34-31. I don't think that's very likely, Spur Daddy. But is it out of the realm of possibility at home? No, it's not out of the realm of possibility. What would that do to the dynamic here in the Upstate if the Gamecocks won 2 years in a row? Spur Daddy says the Chargers are top 4 in talent and bottom 4 in coaching. Should have hired Sean Payton before Denver did. I agree. Texter says, Mark, now the conferences are looking to add more teams. I've noticed more talking heads mention regional realignment. Haven't you and I been talking about this for almost 3 years? So says Spartanburg J. I do remember that, Spartanburg J. How do you see that developing? Like, what does that look like for you? Mark, what will happen first? We see aliens or Dak Prescott wins a Super Bowl? Oh, that is a fantastic either or, Wes. A fantastic either or. Diesel, you ready for this? We're going to see aliens before Dak Prescott wins a Super Bowl. Okay? We're going to see aliens. All right? Because we're now at the point where our intelligence agency is saying we have them. If they're telling us that, the next pressure point is going to be, well, then let us see what you have. And I think that could happen in the next 5 years. So then I'm saying to myself, is Dak Prescott going to win a Super Bowl in the next 5 years? I don't think so, right? We're going to see aliens before Dak Prescott wins a Super Bowl. That's my answer. What do you think, Wes? How would you answer that, buddy? 71307 on the carpro.com text line. Okay, my friends. So what do we think? How do we think? What are the next dominoes that are going to drop in college football realignment? All right, I've been thinking about this. I really have. Because every single seat at the table right now in college football, each of the Power Five, let's be honest, the group of fives are just trying to figure out a way to survive, right? Them thrive, survive first, thrive second. The Power Five teams are all trying to figure out how they can retain their power status, right? And then above and beyond that, how they can make college football playoffs and win national championships. So what we have done here is we have answered the question, what we would do if we were each of these Power Five conferences right now. What we would do, what would we do if we were the Big Ten, if we were the Big 12, if we were the Pac-10, if we were the SEC, if we were the ACC, what would we do? All right, so that's what I've done here. And I invite you guys to take part, and I invite you guys to chime in with what you would do in the predicament that all of these leagues find themselves in. Now, you might remember at the ACC kickoff last week, what should the ACC do? The ACC needs a new media rights deal. And they need to get the networks on board with that by letting the networks know, look, why should you give us a new media rights deal? Because right now the ESPNs and everybody, they're holding Clemson's feet to the fire, Florida State, Miami's feet to the fire, because they said, no, you signed this agreement. This is what we're going to pay you. But it's like ESPN doesn't realize that if that's what they're getting, if that's what each school is getting, they're going to be getting a crap product on TV. The ACC needs to impart this upon the networks, and they need to get them a new media rights deal. Period. End of story.
If they don't, I find it likely, plausible, plausible, leaning likely, that the Big Ten, whose media rights now are split between ESPN and Fox, is that right? They will find a way to help schools that they really want cover the exit fees and the grant of rights payments should they choose to leave early. It's like, we think you're valuable enough that we will cover you. We will float you, whether it be 100%, 80%, whatever it might be. We're going to float you to get you in this league because we think long-term you're worth it.
Yeah, I mean, Diesel, it's an interesting take. It's an interesting look at where we are and what they need to do. But the ACC, just like the U.S. women's national team, you heard me say, in a very precarious position right now. If they can't convince the networks to give them a new media rights deal, you're going to lose Clemson, Florida State, and Miami eventually. And if you think, no offense, Diesel, that adding Appalachian State is going to keep the ACC afloat, I think an ACC that doesn't include Clemson and Florida State and Miami could be won by Appalachian State, if I'm honest with you. I mean, I think Appalachian State is honestly a pretty typical ACC team these days, if I'm honest with you. What would we do if we are the Big 12? As we know, they've gotten all these people on board in the Big 12, all these schools on board in the Big 12, and they've gotten them on board immediately. BYU, Houston, UCF, all walking through that door, right? Cincinnati, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, all walking through that door and all walking through that door in 2024. I'm a poet and don't know it. They're also adding Colorado. That would give them 15 members. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 members right now. But they're losing Oklahoma and Texas, right? And adding Colorado. So what do you do if you are the Big 12? What should the Big 12 strategy be? In an era where so many conferences are fighting for survival, the Big 12 has survived, right? They've survived. They've gotten the very best of the group of five. All those teams that we talked about for years, Diesel, these programs merit Power 5 inclusion. The Big 12 got all of them. UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, BYU, they got all of them. Now they get Colorado as well. They're going to have 13 members. I don't think their first order of business should be expanding beyond 13. I don't think that's what it should be. I think their first order of business is making sure you set a solid foundation, making sure your members are happy so that you can lock down the teams that you have and you don't have any more defectors, right? Right now, we look at college football as the SEC and the Big Ten, and the Big 12 has survived the recent round of cuts, and the ACC and the Pac-12, we're seeing which one is going to die first. The Big 12 needs to solidify its stance, needs to develop solid foundations, need to make sure that all of their members are happy. That is my advice right now for the Big 12. What about right now? So we've done the ACC, we've done the Big 12. What about the Pac-12? Diesel, you said, and it comes off like a little bit of a joke, right? But how many members are in the Pac-12? It used to be called the Pac-10.
Ask me again tomorrow. The number might be different.
Right. Used to be called the Pac-10. Now it's called the Pac-12, right? So we've got USC and UCLA leaving. You have got Colorado leaving the conference, right? So that leaves you with Arizona State, Arizona, California, Oregon, Oregon State, Stanford. That's 6. Utah, Washington, and Washington State. That's 9. I believe, Diesel, Arizona is about to leave for the Big 12 as well. Mm-hmm. That gives you 8. So here's what I do. I add Boise State, and I add San Diego State. And then we go back to being the Pac-10, which is a name that has cachet. It's a name that is far more attached to success than the Pac-12 ever was. Boise State, how in the hell have they not been grabbed up by somebody and all this group of 5 expansion?
So my understanding is that to the existing and soon to be remaining PAC ? Member institutions, that to them, academics really, 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 really matter. Meaning the Stanfords of the world will not stomach being in a conference with lowly Boise State. Now, to us, we only think about it from the athletic prowess, your ability to command a market, your ability to get wins in big games. That's how we think about it. But allegedly, those with their noses up in the air won't invite the Boise States of the world because they don't feel like they're on the same level. And I ask the question, at what point do you not have a choice? At what point do you go into survival mode?
Yep.
At what point are you so addicted to your academic reputation as a conference, not just your academic reputation as a university, because everybody knows that Stanford's reputation as an institution is impeccable. So why does it matter if the other school doesn't have as many doctoral programs as you do? And then why can't you, if you feel like they're beneath you academically, why can't you as Stanford, Cal, whoever else is going to be left, why can't you take it upon yourselves to help elevate their academic standing? That's how conferences are supposed to work, right? You know, it's not just an athletic agreement, it's an academic agreement, which means your universities are going to work together on academic pursuits. Why can't you say, yeah, Boise State, you're not where we want you to be with research programs, with medical schools, with whatever it is, we'll help you get there because we really need you. Otherwise, your conference is going to fold. So what would you rather do? Stand on your pedestal or fold?
They're at that point of desperation right now.
Yeah.
Right now. All right. Right now. A conference that includes Arizona State, Cal, Oregon, Oregon State, Stanford, Utah, Washington, and Washington State has some meat to the plate, right? There's some meat to the sandwich there, but they're going to need some help. They've lost Colorado. They've lost UCLA. They've lost USC. They're going to lose Arizona, I believe, to the Big 12 as well, which would give the Big 12 14 teams after Oklahoma and Texas leave. You've got to add, I'm thinking about what I do in their shoes. I'm adding Boise State, great program. Regionally, it makes sense. I'm adding San Diego State, improving program. Look, whether or not it gives you San Diego or not, right? I know that's what the power brokers care about. They've got a new, really nice stadium called Snapdragon Stadium for San Diego State. That's what I'm doing. And now I have a Pac-10 that at least has the capability of being a legitimate and bona fide Power 5 conference. I think that's no-brainer what they have to do. If I am the SEC, I do nothing because I am the top dog in all the land, right? Everyone wants to be who we are in the Southeastern Conference. I know people don't like hearing that, but it's true. Everyone wants to be in us. Everyone wants to be us, right? That is the lay of the land right now in the SEC. But what would you do if you were the Big Ten? And this is interesting. This is really interesting because the Big Ten, you heard Matt Moscano earlier today say the Big Ten is meeting to discuss whether they want to go to 18 to 20 teams. Why would they do that, Diesel? They would do that to make the SEC uncomfortable. The Big Ten is going to be at 16 schools. You know, they have 14 now. They're adding USC and UCLA next year. The SEC adding Oklahoma and Texas next year. You'd expand above and beyond that if you don't just want to concede the best conference in the land to the Southeastern Conference. And if you are serious about vying for the title best conference in college football, what you got to do, Diesel, is you've got to look at expanding. Now, we've got a texter that says, Mark, all the ACC needs to do is add Notre Dame. Yeah, all they need to do. Diesel, I am operating.
Everybody's been trying to add Notre Dame for like 20 years. It's not going to happen.
So, Diesel, here's what I'd like to do. All right. I have taken a look at what the SEC is going to be with Oklahoma and Texas. I've taken a look at what the Big Ten is going to be with USC and UCLA. And I've just attached a current 1 through 10 program score. All right. Now, I'm not going to hit you with every single individual school's score. You know, it's where the program is right now. Okay. Generally speaking, I'll give you just a few here. I have South Carolina as a 5. I have Arkansas as a 6. I have Auburn and Florida as 7s. You can kind of figure out the scoring system, right? Scale of 1 to 10, Big Ten schools. I have Michigan and Ohio State 10s. I have Penn State an 8. I have UCLA a 6. So I have UCLA a tick above where South Carolina is as a program, and I have USC a 9. Okay? So like you're kind of piecing this together here. Add it all up, Diesel. I get 110 total points for the SEC and 98.5 for the Big Ten. So they're short. They're short. You can settle for second place, or you can make a bold move and make the SEC uncomfortable. So what school makes the SEC uncomfortable? What school or schools? Who would be great brand fits? Who would be great regional fits? I'm operating under the same pretense you are. Notre Dame's not going anywhere, right? So I'm looking at Diesel, Oregon, Stanford, Utah, Washington, West Virginia, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and Pitt. Pitt is far more of a Big Ten school than an ACC school anyway. You know, they want to be playing West Virginia every year, which they could. West Virginia is not a Big 12 school. Why are they in that conference, right? So Oregon, Stanford, Utah, Washington, West Virginia, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and Pitt. I'm looking at those schools. And I'm going to make the move, and I'm going to muck bleep up, Diesel. I'm going to muck it up because I'm not going to settle for the SEC being top dog forever. And the only way to make them uncomfortable, man, I'll tell you what, you add Oregon, you add Clemson, that makes me uncomfortable if I'm the SEC.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a race to see who will add, who will try to steal away North Carolina. I think that's another golden goose. A good football program, not great, but good. And then you've got, the elite basketball and elite basketball history of North Carolina, and they're kind of that monkey in the middle. They could go either way. If the SEC really wants to commit to basketball, you go after North Carolina. If the Big Ten wants to strengthen their basketball and really force the SEC to make a move, then they go after North Carolina. Virginia, it's a great sounding flagship, but I don't think Virginia helps you a whole lot in either major sport. So I think Virginia might be one of those schools that's left out in the cold. Maybe they come along because, one school won't go if you don't bring Virginia with me kind of thing. But I think ultimately where we're headed, Mark, and I hate the sound of this, I think we're headed to 2 32-team super conferences, essentially one covering the northern half of the United States and one covering the southern half of the United States. I hate it. I hate it. Fans are going to hate it. Attendance is going to continue to drop. And this is crazy. Do you really think Southern Cal is going to sell out for Rutgers? Do you really think the fans in Los Angeles are going to be jazzed because Illinois is coming to town? No, they're absolutely not. So you're going to see proud programs continue to have increasingly bad attendance woes, and we're going to be talking about it for years. Oh, how come the attendance in this sport is dropping? Because you're asking fans to fly 4,000 miles to go to a game. Sorry, not happening. So we're going to continue to see some of these symptoms plague college football. And, look, they can cover up the issue by reducing stadium size. Florida's doing it. They could cover up the issue by saying, oh, well, we don't have 20,000 empty seats because we took 10,000 out. Now we only have 10,000 empty seats. Look at us. We got a higher percentage of our stadium filled. I think that's going to continue to be a massive problem. And I think one day, it might be 30 years down the road, but I think we're going to see, again, 32-team super conferences break apart again into 8 to 10 team smaller regional conferences.
What's funny about that, Diesel, is didn't we just hear this BS, this spiel, this spew of nonsense that, hey, the reason we're changing the SEC schedule is because we're not seeing enough of these games. You know, Florida isn't going to Alabama, but once every 10 years. What the hell do we think is going to happen when you got 32 teams in your conference?
You just changed your scheduling model, and you're going to muck it up again by adding more teams. So now it's going to take just as long to see programs again on your schedule.
Hey, the SEC has now added Clemson and Florida State and Miami and North Carolina and both Virginia schools. And they got the Hail Mary successful with Notre Dame. And now the very excuse you gave everybody for why you jerked with the schedule that we've had for years that fans loved, and now Florida doesn't play South Carolina every year anymore, right? You jerked with that to make the matchups happen more often. And now it's going to be, hey, Florida hasn't been to Columbia, South Carolina in 12 years.
Yeah.
Because you morons couldn't leave well enough alone.
And you're going to have like-minded schools in these small regional pockets. When you do play, attendance is going to be ridiculous. It's going to be fantastic. Wow, we haven't seen Florida in 5 years. We really want to go to that game. Wow, how exciting is it that we've got Georgia down the road and they're finally on the schedule again. And you're going to start to see, oh my God, regionality matters. People show up when you're playing regional teams. South Carolina fans are not going to give a rip when they're playing Texas Tech if they end up on the schedule one day. They're not going to show up in Columbia. They're not going to show up in Lubbock, Texas. And you say, why the heck are we even playing these guys? Why are we in the same conference as them? I wonder if it's going to take some massive implosion of media rights deals. You know, you'll see a major network go under, and then they realize, oh crap, nobody has the money to put out to float this entire massive conference deal. And then they say, oh, why don't we just get 8 of us who are in a pretty tight, 3-4 state range, and let's just play each other as a new conference.
So I'm saying the ACC, if I'm the ACC, I'm getting a new media rights deal. If I am the Big 12, I'm sealing the deal with Arizona, and then my focus is just on making all my members happy, right? If I am the Pac-12, I realize what I'm losing. I'm losing USC, UCLA, and Colorado, right? I'm losing Arizona. That gets us down to 8 teams, but I'm adding Boise State and San Diego State, right? I'm doing that if I'm the Pac-12. If I'm the SEC, I'm doing nothing. My question to you, Diesel, if you are the Big Ten, do you expand further? They're having those meetings right now. Okay, now you've just told me you hate the idea of these mega conferences. If you're the Big Ten, is second place to the SEC good enough for you? Or do you look at expanding to 18 to 20 teams to make the SEC uncomfortable? What do you do if you're running the Big Ten?
Yeah, I absolutely try to force their hand, but I try to go after whatever it is I value, whether I value football, and let's be real, that's what they value. If I am them, I absolutely go after Clemson and Florida State. And again, as a person who grew up a Clemson fan, didn't go to Clemson, shifted my fandom elsewhere, I don't want to see Clemson playing Illinois or Minnesota or Rutgers or Southern Cal. I don't want to see that. I think that sucks. But, we got people on the internet every day saying, how great is this going to be? It's going to be so cool. That's because all they ever do is watch it on TV. They don't go to games. They didn't go to these schools. They don't give a damn who's on the schedule. They just see brands playing each other. And that's all they want to see. So the Big Ten, they go after Florida State. They go after Clemson, possibly North Carolina, maybe Duke. And then they force the SEC to pick the carcass even more and take who's left. Maybe a Miami, NC State. And then you've got 2 mega conferences that are just sort of crossing over each other like a big Venn diagram.
Yeah, it's not
right
good.
In the middle of the country.
Not good. I don't know why the Big Ten also wouldn't go after Oregon or Washington. They took UCLA and USC. Why wouldn't they want those two? All right, guys, what do you think? What would you do if you were the commissioners of these Power 5 conferences? 844-326-3663. The carpro.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. And Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel will be back right after this. We check on the carpro.com text line. Texter says, Mark, postseason success is always the most important mark of a quarterback. I agree completely. Peyton Manning was called the best regular season QB and even needed to win a second Super Bowl to cement his legacy. You know, guys, Peyton Manning has more first game playoff losses than any other quarterback in NFL history. Booger McFarland told me that Peyton Manning's ass was so tight before playoff games that you couldn't fit a pin in it with a hammer. He would know, my former co-host. He played with him in the playoffs. Texter says, Mark, regional realignment, the SEC, Big 12, Big 10, Pac-12, because only way out of the ACC is to abolish the conference. 16 teams per conference. No independent schools. All conference champs get in the college football playoff. Then committee and fans vote in the other 8 teams into the playoffs. So you got a 24-team playoff. What do I think? I think it's a disaster. Guys, it's a disaster. Look at what's happened to college basketball. We don't talk about it until the tournament. And it's because they ruin their regular season. March Madness shouldn't be expanding. It should be contracting. All right? Contracting. Because the regular season doesn't mean anything. Why do you want to take a sport that had the most gorgeous regular season where every game mattered and make us have to watch less? That's what you're doing. When you expand the playoff, you are decreasing urgency. And when you decrease urgency, now the wives' diesel get to drag us into so many other different events because the games don't matter that much anymore.
Yeah, I think the ACC's best bet, and I'm not saying this is going to work, I'm just saying it's their best bet. It's a long shot, and it requires an awful lot to go right for you to make this possible. I think the ACC's only real shot is to try to expand in a way that keeps Florida State and Clemson happy, and that it gets ESPN to increase significantly the ACC's media deal, and they have to abolish this long-term grant of rights structure for the ACC so that teams don't feel like they are trapped in that league for a long, long time. Now, it's funny because it wasn't until about 4 or 5 years ago that any of these ACC teams had a problem with the grant of rights. They were fine with it until just the money just shot through the roof, right? So maybe that means ACC, shoot your shot. Again, don't find it likely. You try to beg, borrow, and steal Penn State away from the Big Ten. You try to get Maryland back. You try to get West Virginia. You try to attract a South Carolina back to the ACC. Again, you're going to have to throw ridiculous amounts of money at it. And who really gives a damn what fans think? Fans are all over the place. They are JoJo the Indian circus boy chasing glory all over the place. But if you can throw money at administrators, you'll get them to pay attention.
One thing we can agree on, the ACC had the worst financial advisors of all time to sign on to the deal they had. But you know what, guys? Do you guys ever feel empathy for the wide receiver making $20 million a year who suddenly holds out because someone signed for $30 million a year? You don't have any empathy for that guy, right? Nor should you for the ACC. But the ACC desperately needs a new media rights deal to keep their bell cows in tow. Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, Duke basketball, etc.
Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla on YouTube loves the Tommy Boy reference with JoJo the Indian circus boy.
We got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next, right here on Offsides, the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. Know you got a ton of choices out there. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your day. Value you, appreciate you more than you would ever know. Here's how you guys can take part in the show. You can give us a ring at 844-326-3663, and you can hit us on the carpro.com text line at 71307, beginning your text with the word fan, and then continuing on with your message. Also, have you guys downloaded the new Odyssey app, AUDACY? If you listen in your car at 97.7 or 97.1, we certainly do appreciate it. But with the Odyssey app, you can listen in crystal clear reception anywhere. You know, especially you got Bluetooth connected to your car, right? You're good to go. As long as you have the Odyssey app, AUDACY, search the Fan Upstate. You'll find Diesel and I right there, Offsides, Monday through Friday, 3 to 7 p.m., and also able to be rewound and listened to on your own time if you miss anything that you want to hear. You might say, hey, man, you need to check out this new stat that Mark devised on Offsides today for NFL quarterbacks. Where is it? Go to the Odyssey app. It's right there for you. It is time for us, my friends, to do that jam. By the way, in this hour, we've got the top 5 at 5. We have got from most likely to least likely losses on Clemson's schedule next year. Okay, most likely to least likely losses. And we've got Truth Serum all in this hour. But for right now, it is time for us to do that jam. We call it the top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstates, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
I don't know why, folks, but maybe because I'm nostalgic for an era that has long since passed. But I am feeling a wee bit nostalgic for the college football of yesterday. And so it warmed the cockles of my heart that Bryce Young had to have a job in college to get a little spending money and to pay his way. Yes, the Bryce Young just a few short years ago, that Bryce Young that is the number 1 overall pick of the Carolina Panthers, recently was a DoorDash delivery guy. Imagine you're at Alabama and Bryce Young brings your food order to your door. Here's Bryce telling us about that.
I was driving for DoorDash, and honestly, I would have like a mask on and a hoodie, and then I would only really accept the drop it at my door orders. So for the most part, I never really got recognized or anything. But yeah, I mean, it was before NIL.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy. So it gives us the idea, Diesel. What questions you want to ask here, man?
What was your job your freshman year of college? If you had a job freshman year in college, what did you do? I worked for a grocery store chain. This was like a job I had in high school. It was a grocery store chain. You know it well, being not from Florida, because you're not from Florida. You're from New York. You are a New Yorker. But I worked for a Winn-Dixie. Winn-Dixie's a big chain of grocery stores, a bunch of them down in Florida. Freshman year, I worked at Winn-Dixie for maybe 5 months, 4 months.
I also worked at a grocery store chain that will remain nameless, Diesel, because we have a grocery store sponsor on this show, Diesel. Yeah, Diesel. There's a reason why Winn-Dixie doesn't exist around here anymore, okay? They weren't doing things the right way. But I worked at a grocery store chain that does exist here. I will not mention the name. I was a bag boy, stock boy. Sophomore year, Diesel, I was a bus boy at a popular chain restaurant. I'm going to share more about this with you than I have in the past. Starts with a C, ends with an I, okay? And I was fired from that job because I would not stay till 2 a.m. doing dishes and mopping the floor. I wouldn't stay. Why wouldn't I stay? Because I quickly did the math and I realized that there was no tip share for those hours. Okay, so I wasn't going to get paid $2.12 an hour to mop the floor at 1 a.m. in the morning, especially when they promised me I could advance to become a server, and there was no end in sight to the busboy stuff. So that didn't work out very, very well for me. Can't defend all the decisions we made, folks, when you were like 18, 19 years old, but that was one of mine. What was your Bryce Young college job? Next up.
4.
At number 4 on the top 5 at 5 today. We open the show today by asking you something we will ask you right now, and it involves you doing a little bit of a balancing act, my friends. Oh, yes, it does. What is your hottest take for the college football season 2023? Now, many people define a hot take as something that you derived, right? Something you created out of thin air just to get a rise out of people. But I'm asking you this. What is your hottest take that you actually believe is going to come to fruition? All right? What do you actually believe? Then, when you send it to me via the text line, carpro.com text line, I will grade it A, B, C, D, or F in terms of likelihood that your hottest college football take comes to reality. Mine is that Florida State is not going to play in the ACC championship game. And I give my hot take, of course I do, an A, because Florida State is not going to be playing in the ACC championship game. Diesel left the reservation so far, we located him in Bermuda.
Well, I gave what is actually a hot take. You gave a bold prediction. I gave a hot take. Dan B, by the way, says, Mark, you refusing to do a job for money is a very Gen Z mentality.
Yeah.
But my hot take was that North Carolina finds a defense and rides it all the way to the college football playoff. Because they've got an offense. We know that Drake May can sling the ball around and play, and he's expected to be really, really good this year. If North Carolina can find a defense, I think they stand a chance. But that's why it's called a hot take. It's not a big chance, but I think it is plausible.
Plausible. What is your hottest college football take of 2023 that might come off a little bit controversial, but you actually believe it's going to happen? What is yours? 71307 on the text line. Next up.
3.
At number 3 today, file this under dumbest thing you could ever say to your new employer. The Dallas Cowboys' first-round draft pick, Mozzie Smith, out of Michigan, I believe defensive lineman out of Michigan, was quoted as saying at training camp the other day, I don't even like football. Bro, Jara, how do you feel? You're paying this guy millions of dollars. He's publicly stating he doesn't like football. Imagine getting up on a microphone to host a show and saying, I don't even like hosting a show. I don't like doing this. Now, I will tell you guys this, and I think you've seen this if you listen to the show on a regular basis. There are certain sports that I'm only a casual fan of. I am a passionate college football fan. I am a passionate NFL fan. I am a passionate soccer fan, right? I am a casual baseball fan. I am a casual hockey fan. I can get on the air and I can admit that to you, okay? But to just be paid millions of dollars and you come out and what you drop on your employer is, I don't even like football? What? I guarantee you, if this dude said that the week leading up to the draft, he wouldn't have been drafted. Wouldn't have been drafted. You can't be drafted. You can't, that is so important, your passion for what you're doing. He says, I don't even like football. I just like hitting people. Boy, Dallas, sounds like you got yourself a real good one there. Mozzie Smith. Bonehead of the Week award, by the way, Mozzie Smith. I don't even like what my boss is paying me millions of dollars to do. Next up.
2.
All right, folks, here is the stat that I have devised today. It is as follows. Quarterback playoff wins per year. All right? And here's why I'm doing that. So we can accurately separate the top tier of NFL quarterbacks from the middle tiers of NFL quarterbacks. I don't think we're doing that successfully right now. There are 8 quarterbacks in the NFL that average 0.7 playoff wins a year or more. Okay? 0.7 playoff wins every single season or more. That's what they're averaging. Those quarterbacks are Jalen Hurts, who has 2 wins in 3 years. He's at 0.7. Brock Purdy, very small sample size, but 2 wins in 1 year, 2.0. Josh Allen has 4 playoff wins in 5 seasons, 0.8. Jimmy Garoppolo has 4 playoff wins in 3 seasons, just can't stay healthy, 1.333 playoff wins a year. Joe Burrow, 5 playoff wins in 3 seasons, 1.7 a year. Russell Wilson, 9 playoff wins in 11 seasons, 0.82 playoff wins a year. Aaron Rodgers, 11 playoff wins in 13 seasons, 0.85 playoff wins a year. And how about Patrick Mahomes, the one and only, 11 playoff wins in 5 seasons, 2.2 playoff wins a year. Who is not cutting the mustard? Who is not getting her done? Right? Who is falling short here? And we should clearly delineate a gap between the guys we just mentioned and the following. Lamar Jackson, 1 playoff win in 5 seasons, 0.2. Kirk Cousins, 1 playoff win in 8 seasons, 0.13. That's awful. Playoff wins a year. Deshaun Watson, 1 playoff win in 4 seasons, 0.25. Daniel Jones, 1 playoff win in 4 seasons, 0.25 as well. And then we close with Jared Goff, 2 playoff wins in 6 seasons, 0.333. Ryan Tannehill, 2 playoff wins in 10 seasons, 0.2. And Dak Prescott, 2 playoff wins in 6 seasons, 0.333. Folks, the best quarterbacks lead you to playoff success. It is why I would never have given Justin Herbert the 5-year, $263 million deal, $53 million a year that they just gave him. He has 0 playoff wins. Well, Mark Ryan, he's only played 2 seasons. Okay, but I need to see what he can do for me in the postseason before I fork over that kind of dough. Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields, Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, all have 0 playoff wins. Folks, I value the guys who do have a track record of winning in the playoffs, which is why in this metric, Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, Josh Allen, Jimmy Garoppolo, Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes fare very, very well. It's my new stat of the day. What do you think? And finally,
1.
at number 1 on the show today on the top 5 at 5, we are asking you, in the college football game of musical chairs, the realignment end game, right? It will be a hunger game for either the ACC or the Pac-12 because one will be likely eliminated. What would you do if you were running some of these Power 5 conferences? All right? If I was the ACC, I would not focus on a single thing other than getting a new media rights deal because the big dogs in my league, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, are not happy. If I was the Big 12, I would complete the rumored acquisition of Arizona. Already added Colorado this week, gives us 14 teams. And then my focus would just be on making sure every single member of my league is happy, building a new and strong foundation for our league. For the Pac-12, what would I do? Well, they're about to be the Pac-8, okay? They are going to lose UCLA, USC, Colorado, and I believe Arizona. I'd go back to the Pac-10. We know them best as the Pac-10 anyway. And I would add Boise State and San Diego State. Boise State is an elite Group of 5 brand. You can't mention the top 5 Group of 5 programs from the last 20 years and not have Boise State in there. They've long since deserved a Power 5 berth. That's what I'd do if I'm the Pac-12 or I'm the Pac-10.
A scary thing right now, Mark, though, is that a lot of these conferences are very much captive to the moment. Schools like Tulane are being considered for Power 5 inclusion.
Yeah.
Because Tulane is in New Orleans, and that's literally it. Tulane has had one good football season in the last 25, and they're being considered for Power 5 membership, whereas a program like Boise State that hasn't been elite, they, they're all the publicity from the Oklahoma wins and the bowl wins, that's sort of subsided. That's a little bit of thing of the past, but they're still a solid football program year in and year out. They would be the right ad if you're looking for football quality. If you're looking for markets, make the mistake. Go after Tulane and SMU.
Fair take. If I was the SEC, I would do nothing because everybody else in college football wants to beat you and wants to be in you. But if I was the Big Ten, and here's an interesting one. Our guest in the 3 o'clock hour, Matt Moscano on LSU, said the Big Ten is meeting to discuss whether they want to expand to 18 or 20 teams. Do you accept, if you are the Big Ten, being second fiddle to the SEC? You are clearly number 2, right? Everyone talks about college football now through a Big Ten or SEC glasses. But you are very clearly number 2. Is that okay for you? Or do you want to make the SEC uncomfortable and expand further? Folks, here's what I did. I went through and I just assigned a 1 through 10 number score for every program in the Big Ten or the SEC right now. If you want to know the number score of any program in the Big Ten or the SEC, just let us know what team on the text line, and I'll tell you my 1 through 10 score for that program. But it's basically where the programs are today, right? A couple. Michigan, I gave a 10. Ohio State's a 10. Penn State is an 8. UCLA is a 6, and USC is a 9. New Big Ten members. Over on the SEC side, obviously Alabama and Georgia are 10s. I have LSU a 9, and I have Arkansas at about a 6. There's a few. But if you look at what the SEC is going to have and you add all those totals up, the SEC is at 110 points. The Big Ten is at 98.5. The Big Ten is not what the SEC is. They're not going to be what the SEC is. But if they expand, it could make the SEC very uncomfortable. So who should the Big Ten consider? How about Oregon, Stanford, Utah, Washington, West Virginia, Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and Pitt? Pitt belongs in the Big Ten. West Virginia belongs in the Big Ten. West Virginia is not much for academics, right? But culturally, historically, wouldn't it be sweet to see Penn State play Pitt and West Virginia every single year? Those are natural rivals. If I'm the Big Ten, I'm looking seriously at expanding to threaten the SEC and to make them uncomfortable. If you were a Power 5 conference commissioner, what would your expansion strategy be? And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which we can do, which you can do at 844-FAN phone. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. The CarPro.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at the Fan Upstates on all 3. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube. We'd love to have you. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that's M-A-R-C Ryan at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Coming up next, from most likely to least likely, the possibility for losses on Clemson's 2023 football schedule. We're Offsides.
Mark, you see that little number right next to the eyeball in the upper left corner of the screen there? We had 13 people until it just changed. 13 people watching the stream. This thing's getting bigger every single day. It's great. It's great. And I feel like, conference realignment is such a water cooler topic that literally anybody can share whatever cockamamie ideas for what they want to see happen, what they think should happen. We got Halo Master 96. Halo Master, who started out basically just running smack in the comment section on our YouTube videos. He's here. He's here. We sucked him in. We brought him. Thanks for joining the party there. Halo Master 96. See, it's fun. It's fun. Madcraft says 275 subscribed. Yeah, our subscriber count keeps growing. That's awesome, guys. We appreciate it so much. We're watching this thing grow incrementally a little bit every day, and it's so much fun to watch. Thank you.
Yeah, guys, thanks so much, man. It's been a blast, and love all the interaction. Please make sure that if you send a sports take on here, make sure you also hit us with that on the carpro.com text line. We'd love to have it. And if you ever see Diesel and I out and about, now that you guys are, I'm very sorry about this, knowing what we look like. Very sorry that that's happening to you. Be sure to come up and say hi. Okay, Diesel and I are out and about all across the upstate all the time. We love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.